I call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Our first item of business is roll call.
Akers. Albers. Archer. Bergston. Bogner. Bowler. Bickerud. De Moranville. Dahl. Elliott. Flores. Fuller. Garcia. Garrity. Grandy. Hendrickson. Hyen. Ho. Jackson. Jewell. Kallenberger. Kelly. Kidd. Klein. Lonker. Maples. Markle. Martin. McDermott. McIntyre. Mertens. Meyer. Nichols. Niedery. Nordstrom. Ogren. Orth. Oxler. Penny. Papoon. Pitts. Renz. Rostenpour. Swanson. Tidrow. Thomas. Tuttle. Valdez. Williams. Works. Zwick. There are 42 senators present for roll call.
With that, our next item on the agenda is first open period. Our first speaker for first open period is the Asian American Student Union President, Savannah Radavong. Feel free to come on up. We've got a podium with a microphone. You can take the microphone off the stand if you want and walk around.
Hello everyone. My name is Savannah Bertanavong. I'm the president of the Asian American Student Union. I don't know if you guys saw some of the MSO groups we got together and we created a statement, obviously disavowing all the alt-right posters that were posted on campus. But I think that just goes to show that even though as much as we want to uplift this message of a K-State family, we really need to do better in showing that we are united against this sort of hatred and just sort of ignorance and people trying to divide us. But we really wanted to release that message because we want to show a united front and show that we stand as one, as a K-State family. And again, I just think we need to do a little bit better in kind of coming together and, being united. So one of the things that I also wanted to put out there and kind of bring to the forefront once again is a need for a multicultural student center. I know there were talks and committees about that last year, but as far as I have heard at this point, I have heard no progress or updates with that. And, if we, seeing those kinds of messages on campus, of ignorance and hatred, it's really disheartening. And we need this center for multicultural students of all kinds of different backgrounds to have a safe place for them to come together and just, share in their culture. And I think that we just need to keep this conversation moving. I don't want this need for a center to get lost in all this bureaucracy, even though I know we need to go through it, but I just don't want us to lose that message and forget why we need this why we need this center in the first place. So, yes.
Are there any questions for President Bertanavong? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second speaker for first open period is the president of the Young Democrats, Maddie Ames.
Hello, Sea of Purple. Something that a bunch of us got together last night and discussed. We had a couple of different aspects. We had some that were institutional, of ways that we could move on and not just have a discussion for a day and then be finished. Some were institutional, some were more social, and some just kind of had to do with how we run our day-to-day lives and what we need to get involved in individually. Someone brought up a really good idea that it's kind of hard to explain, but it's not actually that hard to explain. I'm not good at explaining things. But if everyone at some point wore like the t-shirt for the same day, we were trying to think about ways that people could actually see the message, because after a while, people ignore what the cement says for chalking. They ignore what posters say. But if like there were 30 people that they saw throughout the day wearing the exact same thing, that would be weird. They would notice something. So maybe if we had a day where we all wore like the same color, we all wore the same shirt. I know that could get expensive, but so like kind of the same color, and then we had something going on in Bosco Plaza, that would be a really good way to kind of advertise for that. But so t-shirts is kind of like a social way to get people thinking about it, and not just posters and chalking and word of mouth. For institutions, we discussed different types of classes. We know that there are already some in place, but apparently they are not that effective. We talked about how if we do get new classes, they are actually going to have to focus on letting people kind of like not necessarily still be themselves, but some of the classes that we have kind of preach at people and they don't really teach. They don't get them to understand what's happening. We were kind of using the expository classes that we have as an example, because most of us have taken those. But we were thinking that if we did have a diversity class, it would have to just focus on kind of like communication and not just a reading here or there and a paper here or there, you know, an actual discussion that people would have to get involved in. And then another thing that we talked about was SGA is mostly white Greek life. And a good way to affect change on campus is if we got SGA way more diversity. Something that we said at the meeting, there were, I think, 10 or 12 organizations there, at least someone was involved from that many. We said if someone came from every one of those organizations to every single SGA meeting, we could get people to have an understanding of what's actually going on the campus, what we can do with funds, what we can do when things like this happen, and we're not all flustered and immediately searching for the next group that we can communicate. We already have that base of communication. And then if people come to SGA meetings more often and understand what it's about more often, then I guarantee you we could get a more diverse crowd in here. And that's something that we really wanted to kind of focus on with the rally, because standing in solidarity is really nice and all, but if it's just a group of white students who weren't, you know, like persecuted yesterday, then we need to focus on the students that actually have a problem and have an issue, and not just stand in solidarity with no one else there. But that's all I have to say for that.
Any questions for President Ames? Seeing none, thank you. Our next speaker is Cats for Inclusion Exec Board Member Jonathan Cole.
So can I get by a show of hands how many people are part of a Greek organization? Just look around the room real quick. I don't want to say anything about it, but other than like just think about what that says about the group, what that brings into the room, what we're missing out on, and what we need to do to have progress in this organization to move forward. When I heard that SGA had planned a rally in partnership with BSU, my first reaction was awesome, SGA is doing something. And then as I was pondering it today in leadership for Lead 405, we talked about comfortability and our scope of authority and everything. And I was curious whether or not if this was within SGA's normal, comfortable scope of authority. And we talk about things being outside our comfort zone, being on the edge of our authority when we're actually exercising leadership. So my question then becomes, is SGA doing something that is comfortable for them, that's within their scope of authority? Or is SGA doing something that's new for them, doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable to help move K-State forward? I tweeted out something earlier today. It comes from John Carlin, basically. It's saying I tweeted out, now is the time that we make the system accountable for who it serves, and most importantly, who it does not serve. And honestly, I feel like there's a lot on K-State's campus that should serve people of all sorts of different diverse backgrounds that it's not deserving, or it's not serving right now. We have administration that it seems like every single time whenever we have a racist incident on campus or something that threatens the concept of the K-State family, the administration comes out and says, we don't agree with it, this isn't part of our community principles, and they release a press statement. To me, that shows that the political price of the administration is too low for them to ignore the demands of students. We need to figure out ways to leverage that political price to help us make progress, or else administration is going to continue ignoring our demands and our needs as students. We are each other's most powerful asset. SGA controls over $16 million in funds, as well as has considerable clout on campus, and we need you guys to help us move forward. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Exec Board Member Cole? If not, thank you. Are there any further speakers for first open period? Seeing none, we'll move into approval of the minutes. The minutes have been posted on OrgSync. Is there a motion or are there any corrections? Seeing none, is there a motion? Chair Beckerud? It's moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. With that, we'll move into announcements. First announcement for the week is that the City University Special Projects Fund has an application open for any potential ideas that anybody has. Those funds are generated by the sales tax on campus and then is devoted to projects that benefit both K-State and the Manhattan community. So if you guys know of any projects that might improve the safety of campus, economic developments, things along that line, be great to get to hear about those as Chair Beckerud's putting together our presentation here shortly. Also, coming up next Friday is the State of the University address by University President Richard B. Myers, and that is September 29th at 3:30 p.m. in Forum Hall. Also, proxies for today is Thomas for McIntyre, and Senator of the Week this week goes to Senator Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly presented about the Diversity Task Force to the Student Advisory Committee, which is the group of student body presidents from all the Board of Regents universities. I think it was a week and a half ago, and then also traveled to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for their Husker Dialogues to bring back ideas of how we can reform our notion of cultural competency. So kudos to Senator Kelly. Let's give him a round of applause. With that, regular committee meetings for the week. Also next Thursday through the weekend, there's going to be a couple of us that will be going to the Big 12 SGA conference. So we will be missing Senate, and Tendai will be leading. So be looking forward to that. He's going to do a great job, I know. With that, our quote of the week is, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of a true education." From Martin Luther King Jr. With that, we will proceed into commendations. Is there a motion for Resolution 18? Senator Valdez. It's moved and seconded to consider Resolution 18. Would the author please come forward?
Resolution 17-18-18, Commendation to Mayor Usha Reddy by Patrick Hopfinger, Stephen Kuchera, Kelly Holder, Jack Ayers, Trenton Kennedy, Brooklyn Lonker, Miranda Moore, and Olivia Ballman. Whereas Usha Reddy, former mayor of the city of Manhattan, just completed her 2016-2017 term in office after being elected by the City of Manhattan City Commission. Whereas Mayor Reddy has dedicated years of service to the city of Manhattan as a city commission member since 2013. She has worked on countless projects to help better the community for students and residents alike. And whereas she has been a trailblazer in the mental health field, spearheading new programs in the city to help keep all citizens safe and to help them receive the necessary help for their health concerns. Be it resolved that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates outgoing Mayor Usha Reddy for her diligent services to the city of Manhattan. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to Mayor Usha Reddy and her family, the Manhattan City Commission, and Kansas State University President Richard B. Myers.
With that, are there any questions on the resolution? Are there any corrections? Seeing none, first right to debate.
She did a great job as mayor, so I think we should congratulate her.
Awesome. Is there any further debate? Seeing none, we shall proceed to vote. Is there a motion to approve this unanimously? Senator McIntyre. It's moved and seconded to approve Resolution 18 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the resolution is approved unanimously. Our next item of business is committee reports. The committee reports were distributed with the agenda, and they're on the back page of the announcements page. With that, are there any questions on any of the committee reports? Are there any further committees that would like to report something? Chair Beckerud?
I yield my time to Senator Garcia.
Hey guys, I'm Jessica. I'm from the GR committee, and one of the things we talked about last meeting was the City University Projects Fund. So I know you guys saw it in the announcements, and it's basically used to help improve campus and the city by things like changes to streets or parking lots. And one of the things we wanted to do was help get more input from students, since in the past it's kind of been decided by the committee itself what the recommendation for the fund will be. And so I know you guys, well, I sent out an email to you guys before the meeting, and it had just like a little bit about what the fund was, and it had a link to a survey. And so one of our ideas was to share the link on Facebook to try to see if we could get more input that way. So if you guys could please open up your Facebooks and copy and paste that into your Facebook and share it, that would be great. Yeah.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Senator Garcia? Seeing none, are there any further committee reports? Chair Nudry?
You can see it in our written report, but I just wanted to announce that the Privilege Committee asked for recreational services to use some of their reserve funds, some of their maintenance reserve funds to fix some lighting in the gymnasium. Because it's already allocated money, we just have to approve that they can use that money. That won't be going through Senate, but I just wanted to be aware.
Any questions for Chair Nudry? Seeing none, are there any further committee reports? If not, we'll move into directors' reports. Are there any directors' reports? There are a couple on the back of the agenda. I encourage you to take a look through those. Are there any directors who have a report today? Yep. Director Abunahan. Feel free to come on up to the podium.
All right, Mary Abunapan, just real close. But so a lot has been happening this week. Start off with DACA. Met with Halo. Sue Peterson came and spoke. Talked to them a little bit about like what that looks like for some of the students. There was an attorney, like an immigration specific attorney that came and spoke. One thing I'm going to say is I've been encouraged a lot by a lot of different students who want to write letters to senators and representatives. Sue Peterson is going to DC in a couple of weeks. I know that Trent talked about waiting off and holding off until November to write things, but I think with all this motivation and push, I think it's something that we should be looking to do in the next week or so. So just please look out for that kind of announcement and participate, because the more letters we have, the more powerful our statement is, and like the more we just show how important that is. Other things. So as we all know, yesterday there was a lot of unfortunate posters on campus. I'm just gonna say that like Olivia and Jack did an amazing job releasing that statement. A lot of support from everyone on campus saying like, good job for releasing it so quickly and having such a strong opinion about that. I know that the MSO group, just like Savannah talked about, also released a statement. They feel very, very strongly about this. There's a lot of things. This is not, and like because of our statement, we're now releasing some, like we wanted to act on the statement that we released. So this is what the rally's about, and there's also talk of future action to continue this conversation. So please understand, like, this is something that's been going on our campus, not just yesterday, but for a while. Noose on campus last semester, several of these posters, not all of them have received this kind of attention, but I'm glad that now that we are acting on it. So keep the conversation going, bring up the Multicultural Student Center, bring up diversity overlays, bring up workshops. These are all important things to keep that connection going between students, administration, and progress on this campus. So just a little bit about the rally tonight. Like, I hope everyone participates. Tell everyone that you know to come out, because the more people we have, the more we just prove to people who like spew hate how much like we support each other and we support people on this campus. Another update is last night there was a meeting with a lot of amazing people. It went to like 11:45 at night, but you know, it's fine. But yes, a lot of good things were said, talking about potentially sending representatives from organizations to attend like regularly to SGA meetings so we can have that connect between organizations and SGA. I'm open to people who are willing to help in the endeavor to keep the conversation going. Like I said, there's a lot of drive right now. There's a lot of push. So now is the time to have a really strong start and to keep that going throughout the semester. So if you have any questions for me or comments or ideas, find me, email me. I'm ready for anything. So yeah.
Awesome. Any questions for the director? Seeing none, are there any further director's reports? President Ayers.
All right. So I want to start by saying thank you to everybody who's here, because I was scribbling down notes as Savannah and as Maddie and as Jonathan were speaking, because a lot of what they said really resonated with me and struck a chord. And so I really appreciate the three of you for standing up and speaking for what you believe in and standing up and addressing this crowd. So Jonathan said something that really resonated with me. It says, is SGA doing something that is uncomfortable? So he worded it much better than I did, but that's my best attempt at it, right? Are you doing something that is out of your comfort zone? That's better, right? So, okay, sorry about that. And I think that gets into the realm of what is SGA's comfort zone. Is like Jonathan pointed out, and like I think we all are aware of, is that SGA, is an organization that is predominantly white and Greek, and that's something that we need to change. That's something that we need to work on. And I think it starts here with us being open and inclusive and reaching out to individuals. I think it's incredible what Maddie was talking about having SGA reps coming to Senate every week, and that would encourage good discussion and good debate, and would ultimately lead to a more diverse crowd. But half of that challenge is so obviously the challenge is for students to come, but also for the folks here in this room to close the laptop screen and discuss some of the campus issues with students that come and visit Senate. So I acknowledge that a lot of what I'm discussing is I'm talking to myself. I'll be completely honest, and that in the last 2 days I've had like an opportunity to talk to a lot of different students and to really listen. And I think that that's what we need to do more of, is listening. So tonight, like Mary said, I would strongly encourage everybody to go. Seriously, please go tonight, 8:30 or whenever we get done, which 8:30 on Bosco Plaza. And because I think that's one of the things that is really critical, because I think that we can get into a groove of thinking that we're working on the right things, but until you've have your ears open, and once again I know I'm talking to myself, but until you have your ears open, it's really hard to figure out the way that you can be the most effective in advocating for change. Hearing Savannah say things like, we need to do a better job at coming together and being united, SGA can play a role in that. Hearing Jonathan say things like, we need to leverage the political price to push administration to do things that they have, going back to Savannah, get lost in the bureaucracy. I think that SGA can play a huge role in that, and I think that we need to be playing a bigger role in that. And, the Tuesday was a great example of that, but the unfortunate reality, and something that I think we all need to realize, is that Tuesday was just another example of the racism that exists on our campus. It's not an isolated event, and until we can stand stronger as a student body, and I'm not saying that SGA is the only voice in there, because it can't be the only voice in there. But I think that we need to reverse that trend to create a campus and a community where we don't have that series of hate and that series of racism. So anyway, I just would really encourage everybody to go tonight. If you feel comfortable speaking, that's great. If you don't feel comfortable speaking, you should speak. And if and so that is that's only half the battle, though. I really think that tonight could be a really incredible opportunity to do something that we've been talking about doing for a long time, which is having better outreach. I think that's kind of been our catchphrase, and that's something that can really be, we can get a good start on tonight towards the improvement of that outreach by going and by listening and really by being present with all those conversations. So I'll wrap it up there. Just want to say thank you to everybody who has been such an incredible help with setting, with creating the event tonight. I was talking to Lily about this earlier. So incredibly blessed to have the individuals who have made this possible, and I could call many of them out by name, Mary, Ryan, Fio, to name just a few, but I think it takes a group effort, and I really appreciate everybody's commitment to that. And I hope that we show up in full force tonight and are out there listening. Humble yourself and listen, and I think that SGA can be improved, and that can improve the student body because of that. So thank you.
Awesome. Any questions for President Ayers? Yep, Exec Board Member Cole.
So when you said, I'm going to be flexible because I can't be.
Great.
When you said things like shut your laptop lids, listen actively, did you notice anything in the room?
That's a really good question. I still see laptop lids. That's a good question.
Any further questions? President Ames.
It was brought to my attention earlier today that there are a lot of students on campus that aren't going to be loud because it's late at night. There's going to be everyone wearing purple, and
I had not heard that.
I mean, it's a
Yeah. So first, campus police will be there tonight. That's something that Dr. Bosco was influential in making happen. And I think that obviously big crowd and campus police will be there to be able to help with kind of securing some of the safety of it. But I appreciate you bringing that to my attention because I had not heard that. And that I understand that concern.
Are there any further questions? Yes. Kelly. Rob.
I had the opportunity to be part of this amazing discussion that we had last night. And taking away from that, we all said, let's go and talk to some of the faculty. So I'm a bio major, and I went to Dr. McCullough, and Dr. called us in the bio department. And I said, this is what we're doing. Do you want to be a part of this? And they really do. They want the faculty wants to be a part of this. They also said that they weren't very well informed of what was going on and how the response was being taken by organizations like SGA. So my question is, what steps did you take to make sure that the faculty were involved, and why do you believe that they didn't think that they were that involved?
Yeah, so Faculty Senate President Dr. Linsfield was contacted, and he sent out information to the Faculty Senate listserv. And David, you could confirm that, correct? And I believe there's instruction to share it with other faculty. And so that I think was step number one. But what I think is missing is kind of that interpersonal interaction with faculty to encourage faculty to come. And so I think that's something that as a campus, perhaps that could have been an improvement. But I hope I've talked to the faculty members that are planning on coming tonight, and I've seen in purple today. So I totally agree. There's definitely much more that we could do to make sure that faculty members are going to be here. So one, I hope that they do show up in full force. But second, that's a really good reminder for me. I'll be honest that when it comes to like faculty senate meetings, which I go to and whatnot, that I need to be doing a better job of communicating what's going on. Now, unfortunately, those are only every so often, but utilizing that ability to connect with more faculty. So.
I also think that if I'm just here today, but if there was a push for faculty, a more diverse population within our school community will feel safer going to these events.
With more faculty?
If they see their teachers going to these events, they feel more safe as an entire populace to be involved with things like the rally.
And I think you bring up a really good point as well, which perhaps obviously the rally is just one step of what is a much, much bigger process and a bigger organizational effort. But I think that's some of the challenge as well, is students obviously play a large role, but we have faculty members. Faculty members have all kinds of contact with students, and so I think that is where you bring in the component that Mary was talking about or mentioned in her speech, which we're talking about cultural competency training for faculty members. So while obviously tonight is an example of that, I think there might be a bigger challenge that we have that we need to work on, and I think we can work on, which is making sure that faculty members are aware of the diverse needs of students and frankly the concerns of students. Like you said, they play a role in the safety of it. So I appreciate that.
Any further questions? And Exec Board Member Cole.
So it was brought to my attention yesterday, actually, but is SGA in general aware that student athletes can't speak out on controversial events such as white supremacy on campus in fear of losing their scholarships?
So no, I had not heard that. I know that there are athletes that they are restricted by some sense in what they can say as part of the athletics, but I think that is something we need to address head on, because no, I'll be honest, I had not heard that from student athletes, and I think that's something that there's a student athletes advisory committee that SGA rep sits on, and I want to encourage, his name's Nick, I want to encourage him to go and to bring up that issue, because maybe there is something we can advocate for which would allow student athletes protections on scholarships.
Time has been called. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Rostenpour.
I move we extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
It's moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. With that, 10 more minutes.
Can I finish my answer? So That's something I think that we should sit down and talk about that, because I think that would be a really good point of advocacy. It starts there.
Further questions?
Thanks so much, everybody.
With that, we'll move all the way in our agenda to introduction of legislation. Is there a motion for Resolution 19? Chair Neadery.
I move resolution 19.
It's moved and seconded for Resolution 19. Will the author please come forward?
Sorry, I was a little late. I just came from the LULAC meeting over at Hale Library and letting them know about this resolution that we're working on. Resolution 171819, resolution in support of DACA students, by Mary Abunapan, Ellie Archer, Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Glenn Buckeroyd, Meredith Clark, Nick Edwards, Fiorella Flecha, Carlos Flores, Caroline Fuss, Jessica Garcia, Megan Hyen, Kelly Holder, Sam Hughes, Molly Klein, Ryan Kelly, Trent Kennedy, Jordan Keel, James Krutz, Stephen Kuchera, Jordan Martin, Andrew McKittrick, Matthew Mindrup, Miranda Moore, William Moore, Nick Nordstrom, Carolina Pereira, Sadie Poulsen, Ramin Rustampur, Hunter Stanfield, and Victor Valdez. Whereas Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA, is a program that started on June the 15th, 2012, whereas under the program, individuals could request protection if they met a list of 7 requirements. Of those seven requirements listed on the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website, the following 4 requirements particularly pertain to Kansas State University students under the protection of DACA. 1. Were brought to the United States before reaching their 16th birthday. 2. Had no lawful status on June the 15th, 2012. 3. Are currently in school. And 4. Had not been convicted of a felony, significant misdemeanor, or 3 or more other misdemeanors, and do not otherwise pose a threat to national security or public safety. Whereas, according to information posted on the government consideration of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA website, the filing process for DACA is rigorous and includes the following steps. 1. Collect documents as evidence you meet the guidelines. 2. Complete the required forms. 3. Mail the forms and the application fee, $465. 4. Visit an application support center, ASC, for biometric services. And 5. Check the status of the application request online. Whereas the DACA program allows participants to avoid deportation and provides the ability to obtain work permits for a period of 2 years that can be renewed with good behavior. Whereas on September the 5th, 2017, the President of the United States of America directed his Attorney General to announce the end of the DACA program. Whereas on September the 5th, 2017, the DACA program ceased to accept new applicants, and on October the 5th, 2017, the DACA program will no longer adjudicate new renewal requests. Whereas the President tasked Congress to develop a legislative solution within the 6 months before the DACA protections expire. Whereas Kansas State University joined with the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, APLU, in their statement calling for swift legislative action to, at a minimum, codify the protections of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals DACA policy into law. Whereas the APLU statements added that prompt passage of legislation to, at a minimum, codify DACA protections into law would mitigate the incredible disruption that DACA termination would otherwise have on these young people's lives and would allow them to continue their vital contributions to workplaces, college campuses, and communities around the country. Whereas according to a Business Insider article, the state of Kansas currently has 6,083 DACA recipients, whereas approximately 40 DACA recipients currently study at Kansas State University. Whereas the article continued that the state of Kansas could face a $336 million annual GDP, gross domestic product loss, if DACA is eliminated. Whereas the rescinding of DACA makes undocumented students vulnerable to exploitation and increases the likelihood of their deportation. Whereas the term Dreamers is used to refer to the estimated 787,750 people who have been granted protection from the DACA program. Whereas In their September the 4th, 2017 statement from the student body president and vice president on DACA, Jack Ayers and Olivia Bowman declared that a plan to rescind DACA runs contrary to our values as Americans. And whereas the Kansas State University Principles of Community states that we affirm the inherent dignity and value of every person, and we affirm the value of human diversity and inclusion for the community. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association supports the swift passage of congressional legislation to establish permanent protections for Dreamers. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to U.S. Senator Jerry Moran, U.S. Senator Pat Roberts, U.S. Representative Lynn Jenkins, U.S. Representative Kevin Yoder, U.S. Representative Robert Marshall, U.S. Representative Ron Estes, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, U.S. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Kansas State University President Richard B. Myers, Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students Pat Bosco, Provost and Senior Vice President April Mason, Assistant Vice President for Student Life, Director of Student Financial Assistance, and Director of Admissions Larry Mader, Director of Multicultural Programs and Services Mirta Chavez, Interim Associate Provost Grant Chapman, Director of International Student and Scholar Services Sarah Thurston, Director of International Admissions Kristen Oberheide, K-State College of Human Ecology Academic Services and Diversity Coordinator Madai Rivera, President of K-State League of United Latin American Citizens Leslie Ramirez, and President of Hispanic American Leadership Organization Paloma Roman.
Any corrections? Seeing none, are there any questions for Director Kuchera? Chair Beckerid.
Director Kuchera, has there been any consideration or any thoughts in terms of adding the President of the United States, the Vice President,
That has not been taken into consideration, but I'm sure that we can add those names.
Further questions? Speaker Pro Tem Mignani. Can you give us a line number? Awesome.
Yeah, I'll go back and consult the website. And then back to the previous question, adding any potential names, I'll have to reach out to the other authors of the legislation before we make any official changes.
Are there any further questions? Senator Flores.
How were you suggesting it be read? Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Any further questions or corrections? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to, or this resolution will be referred to the GR committee. So, is there a motion for Resolution 20? Chair Orth. It's moved and seconded to consider Resolution 20. Would the author please come forward?
Good evening, everyone. I'd just like to preface this by saying if you want to be added as a sponsor, guests included, just let me know after Senate or text one of these three. Resolution 17-1820, Reproval of White Nationalism at K-State by Ryan Kelly. Whereas Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSUSGA, respects and abides by First Amendment rights granting students the freedoms to express themselves without fear of suppression from social, administrative, and governmental actions. Whereas KSUSGA affirms University President Richard B. Myers' sentiments on free speech, in which he states that as a public university, we know our value to the people we serve comes from an environment that supports open discourse and dialogue. Whereas on September 13th, 2017, flyers associated with the alt-right were found on the Kansas State University campus. Whereas, among other things, this propaganda displayed oppressive messages such as, why are we told Asia for Asians, Africa for the Africans, white countries for everyone, diversity means less white people. We have a right to exist, attacked our country in 2001, demands access to our country in 2017, and 20% of polled Muslims said terrorist attacks against civilians are justified in some cases. How many is too many? Whereas a significant number of multicultural students attend school at Kansas State University who identify with the groups targeted by such aforementioned speech, whereas an atmosphere of hostility and animosity is not conducive to the academic process and does not allow for civil intellectual discussion regarding complex, sensitive issues, and whereas hateful, intimidating rhetoric leads to an uncomfortable environment for students at Kansas State University who already feel their voices and perspectives are not adequately represented and ultimately inhibit student success. Be it resolved that, Section 1, KSU SGA denounces the ideologies associated with so-called white nationalism, white supremacy, and the alt-right within the confines of our campus. Section 2, KSU SGA reproves any action or expression contributing to an intimidating or otherwise exclusive campus atmosphere, as well as any hateful speech, especially that founded on gender identity, ethnic origin, religion, race, disability, or sexual orientation. Section 3, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the Black Student Union President Darrell Reese, Hispanic American Leadership Organization President Paloma Roman, Asian American Student Union President Savannah Ratanavong, Sexuality and Gender Alliance President Adam Carr, Feminist Igniting Resistance and Empowerment President Chelsea Turner, International Student and Scholar Programs Director Sarah Thurston, Broad Spectrum Veterinary Medicine President Stephanie Skinner, Student Access Center Director Jason Maceberg Tomlinson, Association of Residence Halls President Sean Marshall, LGBT Resource Center Coordinator Brandon Haddock, Faculty Senate President Andrew Bennett, University Support Staff President Carol Martin, Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students Pat Bosco, Senior Assistant Director of the Center for Student Involvement Jordan Coker, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections to Resolution 20? Chair Neatery?
I'm sure you saw it on line 39.
Yep.
Awesome. Any further corrections? Senator Archer?
Are there any representatives from the Sexuality and Gender Alliance here? Okay. I just want to clarify. Okay. Yeah, then that's great. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Senator Lehman. Further corrections? Speaker Pro Tem Mignani.
Yes, to both.
Further corrections? Senator Rostenpour.
On line 41, do you consider adding nationality?
Yep.
Further corrections? Seeing none, are there any questions about the legislation? Senator Archer.
I can get that number. I'm sorry. What did you say? You said add that number, like a statistic of multicultural students. I can look into that. I guess kind of my reasoning for leaving it as a significant number is what percentage is significant when like, I mean, again, students who don't identify with these groups look at a number and see it as being less than the majority. That doesn't really merit to most people a significant portion, but to me it does. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
As of 2016, from the Office of the Registrar, the numbers break down around 4,639 students who represent underrepresented populations. 1,979 students identify as international, 754 identified as old recreational, 356 identified.
Yep, that would be a great thing to bring up at exec when it's referred to that committee. Awesome. Any further questions? Speaker Pro Tem Mignani?
Yeah, that will definitely be considered in committee.
Any further questions for the author? Exec Board Member Cole.
What is what outcome are you wanting as a result of this?
So as you can see in section 1 and 2, section 1 basically outright denouncing these ideologies. There should be no middle ground in how Student Senate stands in their stance in regards to these issues. Like, it should be known by all of campus that we do not support these flyers. We do not support the alt-right. We do not support white nationalism.
Further questions? Seeing none, this resolution will be referred to the Senate Exec Committee. And our next item is Bill 2. Is there a motion for Bill 2? Senator McIntyre? Is moved and seconded to consider Bill 2. Will the author please come forward? Senator Martin. It's moved and seconded to allow the author to summarize. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the author will be allowed to summarize.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm just going to go over this first part of the bill real quick, and then I'll kind of skim over the rest and provide kind of some background of why we do this. In accordance with the Kansas State University Student Governing Association funding statutes, the University Allocations Committee is required to close academic competition teams, campus-wide organizations, college council, institutional services, multicultural organization, fine arts council, student groups, and institutional services accounts on an annual basis that retain unused funds. And whereas the accounts listed below have remaining funds that are subject to the provision above. So getting into what we have down here, we kind of have this broken out by the different groups. So first we have our campus-wide organizations that received funds last year. These are groups that did not use these funds or this amount of the funds. That doesn't mean that they didn't use some of the funds that they were allocated. This is the portion that was unused. And so this will be reverted back to, in the case of the first group, it'll go back to our general funding account, which can be used for other organizations. Move on to, I guess, the second section. Multicultural groups, these are funded through the privilege fee, and this will go back to our general funding group. This is the CON-RSV, and I say CON-RSV is our student activity fee account, general account. Then looking down here at section 4, we have institutional services, Center for Advocacy, Response, and Education. Those funds will go back to our general reserves account. And then ACT has its own reserves account. So these are teams, these are academic competition teams that were not able to use their funds this year. And then fine arts student groups are a separate privilege fee entity. So theirs is going into their fine arts reserves.
With that, are there any corrections for the bill? We'll get the numbering of the sections redone. Is there any further corrections? Seeing none, are there any questions for the author? If not, this bill will be referred to the University Allocations Committee. Our next item of business is second open period. Are there any speakers for second open period? Director Kuchera.
Not the official opening. The official opening will be at the start of other than that, I will wait around after Senate. Thank you so much to our visitors who came, and please come back because we really value your opinion. If anyone wants to be added as an author to the DACA resolution, I'm going to hang around afterwards.
Any further speakers for second open period? Seeing none, we'll move into reference of the legislation. Resolution 19 will go to the Governmental Relations Committee. Resolutions 20 will go to Senate Exec. And Bill 2 will go to the University Allocations Committee. And with that, we'll move into second roll call.
Akers. Albers. Archer. Bergston. Bogner. Bowler. Pickerood. DeMoranville. Dahl. Elliott. Flores. Fuller. Garcia. Garrity. Grandy. Hendrickson. Hyen. Ho. Jackson. Jewell. Kallenberger. Kelly. Kidd. Klein. Lonker. Maples. Markle. Martin. McDermott. McIntyre. Mertens. Meyer. Nichols. Neatery. Nordstrom. Ogren. Orth. Oxler. Penny. Papoon. Pitts. Renz. Rostenpour. Swanson. Tidrow. Thompson. Thomas. Tuttle. Valdez. Williams. Works. Zwick. 43 senators present for second roll call.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Senator McIntyre? Awesome. It is moved and seconded to adjourn till the same place, same time next week. Is there, all those in favor say aye? Aye. All opposed, please say nay. With that, the meeting is adjourned.